Special Investigating Unit has frozen a property owned by Lotteries boss Alfred Nevhutanda. The SIU says the lavish 27 million rand mansion was bought when Nevhutanda was both director of Vhutanda Investments and chairman of the National Lotteries Commission board. The purchase of the property was flagged by SIU head Advocate Andy Mothibi in a presentation to Parliament. A trail of fraud, money laundering and networks of corruption were also mentioned in that report. An investigation by GroundUp, meanwhile, identified millions of rands in payments for the house from non-profit organizations as well as several businesses, one of which is linked to Phillemon Letwaba, the recently reinstated COO of the National Lotteries Commission. Let's get you more on this then and speak to SIU Spokesperson Kaizer Kganyago. Mr. Kganyago, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the program. Let's begin first, for people who've not been following the story from its genesis, with how we got to this point.
Good afternoon and good afternoon to your listeners. We got to this point from a whistleblower who reported this matter a few years ago, and we evaluated the issues, and then we were able to then send a proclamation to the president, which was signed, I think it was in December of 2020. We started the investigation, and we have been looking at different parts of the allegation, and this is just one part of that allegation where these matters were brought to our attention. We went into the investigation and we found that there are these NPOs that received about 100 million rand from the lottery board or lottery commission, and part of the money that they received, they transferred to the trust account of a lawyer who was responsible for the purchase of this property for Vhutanda Investments.
Is there any doubt at all at this stage that these are monies that were basically stolen and from an institution that's meant to aid charitable organizations?
We have got evidence to that effect, and that is why we were able to present that evidence to a judge at the tribunal, and that order was given. And the reason why we wanted this order is to make sure that when we go before the tribunal and all the other parties, there are about 20 or so of them, will come and put their side of the story, and the intention in that part of the process will be to set aside those agreements or payments that were paid to these NPOs, because we believe that they were involved in nefarious activities, and therefore once we set aside that contract, we'll be able to recover the money. Therefore, we wanted the house to be available, not transferred or sold to anyone until that matter is done, and we'll be serving those papers in 60 days.
Mm-hmm. So is the property the only item, shall we say, that you're looking to seize from Mr. Nevhutanda?
Obviously, now it becomes bigger, because now we have also cited all the NPOs. We'll have to look at the things that they use the money for, whether they are worth what they were given, and then if they are not, where did the other money go to? Therefore, we will then follow that money to that extent. So
more of his assets could indeed be seized?
Definitely, because once we set aside, the transaction will be unlawful, and therefore we will be able to then recover the money that might have been used for nefarious purposes.
How widespread is the web of alleged corruption and fraud within the framework of the National Lotteries Commission? Because it's something that's been reported on by the likes of GroundUp, but we all read about it in different incidents. Overall, what is the scope that you're looking at?
Yeah, so far we are seeing a lot of some irregularities that have happened. And as I have said earlier, the investigation is still going on. We cannot put a figure or an extent. But just to look at this particular one alone, the amount that was paid was 100 million to these 5 NPOs. And a lot of that money was not used for the purpose that it was intended for. And we have seen all of these places where, for example, you find a rehabilitation center that was supposed to cost 31 million. You look at it, it has not even started working. It was in a dilapidated stage. And that was the problem that we find. Therefore, we find that in different areas. We have reported previously on this platform about people who were given money to do tracks in the Northwest, and they did not do that, and they were paid even more money out of it.
You hear this question often when we have you on to talk about assets that have been seized and the rest of it, but a lot of South Africans will say to you that the seizure of assets and them being sold and monies being recouped is not enough. Who's going to do jail time and when?
No, definitely it will, they might say that. But for us as the SIU, it is enough because it is what our mandate expects us to do. Therefore, once we find criminality in the whole thing, the law specifically says, which is the SIU Act, specifically says that we must refer that part to the National Prosecuting Authority, who will then engage the Hawks to make sure that they look at the criminal side, because that one is outside of our mandate. But we will be supporting the NPA and the Hawks when they do that part of the work. And if there are officials of the National Lotteries Commission that are involved in this case, we will then deal with the disciplinary measures against them. But all of those together will work as law enforcement agencies, as we always do, work together positively, and we do that all the time and make sure that all the outcomes that are supposed to be dealt with are dealt with the speed that it deserves.
Kaizer Kganyago, good to speak to you, sir, as always. Thank you.